QLC Plus Matrix. This is the first video in a series of 3 where I'm going to discuss using the matrix feature in QLC Plus. In this first video, I'm just going to familiarize you with how it works and how things are set up. In the second video, I'm going to talk about taking a group of lights, of RGB wash lights, and creating a matrix using a group of lights. In my third video, it's going to be similar, but instead of using individual RGB wash lights, I'm going to use some strip lights where we can access the individual lights in the strip light to create a matrix. So this is part 1 of the series. I'm going to just basically explain how this works. You basically have to set up a matrix so that you can use the matrix feature in functions. So we're going to go up here and click on Add RGB Panel. And for this one, I'm just going to say it's going to be 12 columns and 12 rows. So 144 total pixels. So if you can imagine, your television screen, if it's high definition, has 720 by 1080, so it has thousands of pixels on there. We're just talking about, in this case, a square panel that has a total of 144 different pixels or lights on it. Some of the choices that you have here: where are we going to start the fixtures from? They're going to start from the top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, so that we know how the signal is going to progress through the fixtures. And QLC needs to know that, so when we're using the matrix feature, it can send the signals to the proper lights to do what they need to do. Over here, as far as displacement goes, snake means that the signal is going to go in and this way, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth this way. Where zigzag, it would go in and would jump over here, do the next line, jump over here, do the next line, jump over here, do the next line. Direction is it going to be oriented this way across when we enter this, or is it going to be oriented in a vertical manner? And if you play around with these, you can see what the differences are. We're just going to let it set at top left, snake, and horizontal, and click OK. So now you can see that we've created a number of rows, row 1 through 12, and each one of these rows has 12 lights in it. Red, green, blue 1, red, green, blue 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to red, green, blue 12. And each one of those rows have. So again, 12 across, 12 down. If I click up here on RGB panel, it actually brings up a picture of the panel. And you can see how things are labeled up here. It's row 1, head 1, row 1, head 2, row 1, head 3. So you can see how they're oriented across this way. So this is numbered 1 through 12, and now you see row 2, head 1 over here, and then working its way back, head 2, 3, 4, up to 12 here. So this is, again, the snake pattern that we chose. Now we go row 3, head 1 through 12, row 4, head 1 through 12. So again, you get the idea of the snake pattern that we're snaking back and forth. And it's just, again, a designation for how the lights are going to be set up on the panel. All right, so now that we've created our panel, and we can click on this to open it up, and it just looks similar, and it gives you the addresses. And you can see where we're going to be limited somewhat as far as what we can do with QLC Plus. There's no way that we're going to be able to do a large LED panel setup with this. Matter of fact, probably you can get a panel with 144 pixels in this, which would be only 18 inches by 18 inches. So if you go that route, if you're going to go to an LED wall, then you need to go to something totally different. You need to go to some kind of a processor setup with cables and all that kind of thing that's going to specifically deal with putting up images and video on an LED panel. So what we're talking about with QLC Plus is just taking some fixtures and arranging them in a matrix so that we can put some matrix effects up on it. But I'm starting with this panel here because you can clearly see what goes on with each of the matrix effects using this panel. So I've got it created. Let me jump over to functions, and we're going to go in here and say new RGB matrix, and it'll pop up. And under groups, we're going to select that RGB panel that was created. Now immediately you can see that we have some effects over here, and you can see what's going on. So this is a stripes pattern, and the way it's currently set up is going to progress from left to right across. You can decide what color you would like these stripes to be. You can choose a different color and say OK. And you can decide if it's going to be two colors so that it's going to be replaced by another color as it goes across. So now as this progresses through, it will change from blue to pink. So the progression is from blue to pink as it progresses through. All right, and then if you actually have this set up or connected to your lights or to your panel, you can click playback here so that it will actually give you a look at what's happening with the progression of the lights across there. And the toggle between circle and square preview, so if you have square pixels or round pixels, you can simply select that. That's simple for there. Once you've decided on what you have created here, you can go ahead and save this as a sequence, which is very handy then. So basically you would create this effect on your matrix and then save it as a sequence, and then you can fire it using a button or include it in a queue to make this particular effect or sequence happen. If we click on the clock, you'll notice that we're set at 500 milliseconds. If we dial that down, it's going to progress through this faster, and you can see the progression happening faster or slower, and they just start at 500 as kind of a general area to start with that. Okay, you can also include fade in and fade outs if you'd like to, as you normally would. Now we're going to be coming up with a number of controls over here. The best thing is to just kind of go through. If you want to get an idea of what the matrix is actually doing, do what I've done and just create one of these 12 by 12 panels, and then you can kind of experiment and go through here. I'll just take a few minutes and go through here quickly with you. Horizontal orientation, we can go vertical, which now it's going to progress through this way. So start at the top and progress downwards. So that pretty much makes sense. I'm going to jump to the top of the list up here. We can do plain color, where we can set up the entire pixel panel to be one color. Again, this could be saved as something, as a sequence. Text. Okay, so in this case here, you can type in some text. And I'm going to just type in test, and you can kind of see the text scrolling across here. You get to choose the color of the text, and if it's going to be two color or not. You can choose the font that you're going to be using, if it's going to be horizontal, if it's going to be letters one at a time, TEST. So again, just some of the choices you can play around. I'll play around with this and see what's going to happen. Now I'm moving vertically. A lot of it will just make sense. Offset means, the Y offset is if you have panels and this is appearing down the bottom and you'd like to offset it so that it appears closer to the bottom or closer to the top, you can use the offset there. But you can also go in here and change the size of the font, which is going to fill up the panel even more too. All right. So that's the idea about the text thing and typing in text there. Let's go to image. In this case, you can actually put an image in here. I'm not going to do anything with that right now. Audio spectrum. In this case, it's going to use an audio source and then use lines to display that. So it might be handy for some DJs to do that. Balls. These are little tiny balls that move around about the screen. And again, you can control the number of balls that's happening and the size of the balls that are happening. So you can see we can make them bigger, make them smaller. Again, this is kind of why I use this screen, so you can get an idea of the size of each ball. Now, again, you can't get a perfectly round ball here because we're using pixels. So you get kind of a representation of what a ball might look on there. You can do random colors. Okay. But so you're not going to get a perfect representation of a ball on there because we're using like square pixels and that kind of thing. And you'll also find that when you go through these properties that there will be limits on them. But this is a quick way to get you going and make things happen without doing a lot of programming. And that's the cool thing about it, is you can create something like this on your own would take an awful lot of steps, where we could just click on save this sequence and it would save the whole sequence as a number of steps for you, and then you can just play that back. Let's take a look at Blinder. So this will just keep getting brighter and brighter and brighter. Again, if we turn that up, you can see that happening quicker. You can see the progression happening quicker. It starts from there and it comes out very quickly. It's almost like a fade up effect that they're using for the Blinder there. Circles, and you can see expanding circles. They're colliding with each other. The diameter, you can make larger or smaller, and whether they fade in or fade out, or whether if you fill the circles in, then they're going to be solid circles, and you can actually see them happening and being created. Again, they're going to kind of look blockish because we're dealing with pixels, and we're dealing with low resolution. Okay, imagine this as being a low resolution computer screen. Even odd, back and forth, 2 rows there. Let me just slow this down a little bit. And again, you have choices as far as what you want to do there, what kind of blend mode that you would want to do. And if you look at the directions as far as blend mode, there's a really good explanation. And actually, I'll pop it up here for us. Matrix Editor. There's a real good explanation of what the difference is between mask, additive, and subtractive, particularly where you're in the case of we're using text and doing text as a matrix. So that explains what that means. Let's take a look at fill. So this would fill the screen from left to right. And again, notice that we're changing colors. I'm going to change this to another color, maybe blue, so you can see that more evident. So it's going to change colors as it progresses across. If you wanted to stay colors, you could just make both sides the same color there. And again, you can change horizontal from vertical or horizontal in the direction of the fill. And again, doing something like this would take an awful lot of steps, but we could just save it. Actually, let's just do that really, really quickly. We'll do this as save this as a sequence. And if we take a look at the sequence here, look at all the steps that it automatically created for us. It created 12 different steps to actually make this happen for us for the 12 rows. Then you can just, so now you have your effect created for you automatically. Then you can just go and adjust the timing on it and fade ins and fade outs and that kind of thing. And it tells you, it automatically filled in what fixtures were used and everything over there. So a real quick way of creating some effects. I'm going to jump back here. Still doing the RGB panel. Let's do, we did fill. We could do fill from center. We can do fill unfill, where it fills up and then tails off and takes everything. Fill unfill from center. So again, you can just squares, fills from squares, and then unfills from squares in the center. A lot of different things that you can do with that. Gradients, okay, and you have presets here. Now again, keep an eye up here because different things will happen. This is a rainbow. There's an abstract one, kind of colors. There's an ocean one here, ocean gradient. So they're using shades of blue. The size, you can make it smaller that when you actually will have lights like that, or make it larger. So we have a number of different gradients here of the shades of blue that are happening. A number of different of gradients. So that's where the gradient comes in there. Again, horizontal or vertical. Or you can even, for this one, has a choice of radial where it goes out from the center. You can see that happening from the center out. Kind of a neat effect. Lines. Just kind of random lines being generated around the screen. Again, take a look at some of the controls over here to affect how those are happening. Noise is just generally noise on the screen, kind of like a white noise effect that will happen there. In noise coverage, we can go high, we can go medium, less noise, we can go low, which is very little noise. It's just kind of some random pixels across the screen. A lot of really, really cool effects here. 1 by 1. It's just 1 by 1 dots going across the screen. Maybe as a test pattern to check all of your pixels, to check all of your lights to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. this would be a good one to go ahead and check all those lights to make sure that everything's happening. Opposite sides going across. See where that's happening. Plasma. It's kind of a unique one here. Size, ramp, and speed will affect how things look in the plasma display here, and you can experiment with changing that. And again, there's a fire, which uses a lot of reds and oranges, which is kind of cool. And you'll find again that you'll have some limits here as I click up, like the speed will only go up to about 50, and that's where the limit is for that. And you can see things changing more quickly here. Or we can slow it down and have it back down to 25 where it was. Oh, again, so I would recommend just trying to play with the controls. This display here is going to give you an approximation of what it should look like out on your actual lighting. So this is an approximation of what things will look like. Plasma with colors. And in this case, you get a chance to choose what colors that you would like to be in the plasma effect. And you have a choice of up to 5 different colors that you can choose for the plasma effect. Again, just to create something like this on your own would take a long time. This is really handy to create kind of some neat effects very, very, very quickly. Random columns, just bouncing in at different places on the page. Random fill columns. Kind of fills in until the whole thing is filled. Random fill rows, top to bottom, horizontal. Random fill single pixels be coming on until the whole screen is filled. Just pixels jumping around in different rows, random pixel per row. Random pixel per row in multicolor. Random rows. Random single pixels just popping out different places in the screen. Snow or bubbles. And you can adjust the number of flakes here. Probably want to go light blue if we're doing snow, right? Or light blue and white maybe. For the two colors, light blue and white, so you can kind of get a snowing effect here. You can adjust the number of flakes up to 255. Increase that number of flakes that are coming down. Almost the snow effect that happens there. Snow or bubbles, squares. The idea is the same as the circle thing that we did. They're expanding squares, so they appear and they expand and kind of collide with each other and do what squares do. Squares from the center. And you can decide whether you fill them in. 3D star field. This is the thing where the stars kind of appear and kind of twinkle on and off a little bit. So they're going like bright and dark, and they'll twinkle a little bit, move around and change. So you can do multicolored stars if you want. Invert brightness, then you can have them start bright and then go dim. Stripes we saw before, stripes from center. Strobe, where you have the flashing. And again, you can save this effect and you can make this whatever color you want and actually use your panel as a whole strobe light if you wish. And vertical fall. This would be the matrix effect. From the Matrix, the famous vertical fall, and then waves effect. It's kind of a cool effect. It's kind of like an ocean wave coming in. So, and it has a little tail to it that eventually fades off. And they say fade tail, we can say no. So we can leave the tail up there. So it will stay solid. There's still a tail, but it doesn't fade. Or we fade it, which is a neat effect, which has employs the dimmer and actually fades it out as it goes across. Direction right, left, in, out, into the center. And so again, a lot of different choices that you have there. So that's pretty much it. And what I recommend is taking a look, because now when you're doing this on a smaller set of lights, like maybe you can't afford 144 RGB lamps. But you could use a set of 16, and I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video. And in the third video, I'm going to show you how to use a set of maybe 5 or 6 strip lights that are individually addressable to create some really, really cool effects on the stage using this matrix effect.